Janet, and welcome to the faculty, family, and friends who have joined us here today. So we have some objectives for today for this presentation. We will be describing how sensory processing disorder affects participation on the individual and family level. We'll also be discussing components and features of a sensory-friendly theater performance. And finally, we'll be exploring the role of occupational therapy consultant in developing and implementing these programs. So the purpose of our project was to support and expand a sensory-friendly performance initiative within a community theater. We really aim to meet the needs of children with sensory processing differences and their families and help create a really inclusive and supportive environment. We also work to support staff by providing education and training. And finally, we really wanted to create a sustainable program that could be used in many seasons to come. So before we discuss our project, I would like to introduce you to the facility that we worked with this year. Seattle Children's Theater, which is located in Seattle Center, strives to provide children of all ages access to professional theater with a focus on new works and theater education. So founded in 1975, they are a professional theater for young audience, which means they hire professional actors, which can be adults or children, and many of their children have come through their acting program to perform for children and their families. So they have two separate theaters, a smaller one that seats 300 and a larger theater with a capacity of 482. And with approximately 8 plays per year, which also includes school performances, they have performed over 235 plays to date. Now I'd like to give you some information about sensory processing disorder. Sensory processing disorder has to do with the breakdown in sensory integration and modulation. It's often thought of as a sensory traffic jam, and it can affect sight, sound, touch, movement, and body awareness. For example, things like an itchy clothing tag or even hair brushing can feel almost painful. So these challenges with sensory processing can lead to behavior issues, motor clumsiness, anxiety, depression, even academic issues. They really impact an individual's ability to perceive and respond to sensory stimuli in their environment, and impacts their ability to be functional individually as well as with family and peer groups. So these detrimental impacts of sensory processing disorder really highlights a need in our community for sensory-friendly spaces and programs, especially because this is not a disorder that's exceedingly rare. In children with developmental disabilities such as autism spectrum disorder, which is a diagnosis that many of you are familiar with, we often see a sensory processing disorder component. In fact, sensory processing disorder affects as many as 16% of school-age children today. So our project began with a comprehensive literature review in which we discovered that families with children who have difficulty processing and modifying their sensory experiences really struggle with social participation and community supports. So interventions and resources that support this community participation can really reduce the frustration and ease planning so that families are able to participate in important activities together in a meaningful and healthy way. So social participation and specifically involvement in the arts are incredibly important areas which are components of future resiliency, mental health, self-actualization, and healthy family functioning. So environmental adaptations, visual supports, and various preparatory materials, which we'll discuss more in detail shortly, have all been shown to help support the arts and other community experiences for these families. So combining the beneficial aspects of the arts with environmental adaptations and preparatory materials takes us to introducing you to sensory-friendly performances. So I've given you the Kennedy Center definition of their sensory-friendly performance, which is a performing arts center in Washington, D.C. It's one of a few of its kind already in practice in the United States today. We utilize some of their model in developing the Seattle Children's Theater sensory-friendly performance, such as changes in light levels and the creation of quiet spaces throughout the theater. So Seattle Children's Theater has built upon their definition by adding that they recognize that every child is different and strives to work within their ability to help create a successful trip to the theater. So what these performances are working towards is the creation of an accessible form of theater that can really accommodate every child. So in keeping with Seattle Children's Theater's mission, these performances are not simply autism-friendly performances or sensory processing disorder-friendly performances. They are performances that consider the needs of all children, of the whole child. And I'm going to introduce Alex, and she'll talk about the details of our project.
So we were brought on to the Seattle Children's Theater Sensory Friendly Performance Project as consultants, and prior to us being brought on, they had conducted a pilot performance in the spring of 2015, and then they were looking to expand their programming to 3 performances in the 2015-2016 season. And we have found that some benefits of having an OT consultant on site when looking to develop this programming is important because we have knowledge of how these sensory processing difficulties can affect function and participation. We also are able to analyze an environment for goodness of fit, and we're able to use compensatory strategies to help make environments more predictable and easier to navigate. We conducted our